Hi, and welcome back. In this episode, we're out at a local venue, Spain Ranch, to talk about some of our day of details, like how is the dress gonna get here? Where are we gonna put it on? And how are we gonna sneak it into the venue without anybody seeing it? Let's head up to the barn and talk to Cecily and John a little bit more about the ranch. We're here in the main atrium of the Black Barn at Spain Ranch, and we're just gonna kind of get a lay of the land. So tell me first, Cecily, what is around us? What is the orientation of this building?
So we are sitting in the Black Barn, and this is where we have our smaller events of up to 75.
Okay.
So where we're physically sitting right now is typically where the indoor ceremony and or dinner, reception, that sort of thing takes place.
Great.
Off to our right and left, we have our getting ready suites. So our couples get to come here and get ready on site. And then we've got our atrium right behind us there, which is often used for cocktail hour. It makes amazing photos.
So with all of this beautiful light flooding in here, I can tell this must be the hot spot for the couple. This is where all the action happens.
Yes.
And then it looks like these left and right rooms are cut off from each other, so you can't see each other.
Yes.
Great.
Even if they're both on their patios, we've gone as far as to put drapes on those doors so you can close them. So if they both want to be outside but not see each other, then they can close those curtains and both have privacy outside.
So this leads me to one of my first most important questions, which is the wedding dress up until this point has been a secret. And we want to keep it that way until this moment right here. So how do we do that? Give me a little bit of a rundown of when the party shows up, where do all of the clothes go, how do we keep that wedding dress a secret until it's picture time?
So at Spain Ranch, for our traditional weddings, they have a full day rental. That's typically a 12 or a 13-hour rental. So that means they're actually coming here with the wedding party to get ready on site. So typically a family member, someone appointed, would bring the dress in the garment bag itself. We have an amazing dress rod in the bridal suite that it can hang on. And there's actually curtains in front of it, which could either make a changing corner or they could conceal that dress until it's time for the bride to
We've got to see that. That's really cool. So the idea would be either they want to tell me about first look photos. So you've got a couple of options, right? Either your bridal party, with the groom, with your partner. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Honestly, we have some couples that want to do first looks with everyone. That might be with brother, it might be with dad, it might be with mom, it might be with
dog.
Yeah. It could be the wedding party. So we see all sorts of versions of first looks. Sometimes people don't want to see each other, but they want to have that kind of reveal with the other people before they walk down the aisle. And really that takes place all over property. Obviously weather and lighting makes an impact on that, but this right here is actually one of the most popular spaces that people use for that first look.
Hair and makeup, logistically tell me, do you put on the dress before? Do you put it on after? How do you keep from messing up all the good stuff?
Definitely after.
Okay.
So typically the bride and whoever's getting ready with the bride will get here right at the start of the rental, and it takes about 3 to 4 hours on average for hair and makeup. Okay. Typically the coordinator or planner will work directly with the hair and makeup artist to make sure the bride is ready at the time that she needs to put her dress on. So everything is fully ready to go. And then another thing to think about is whoever's helping the bride into her dress, they want to make sure those people are ready and dressed too. So there's actually quite a bit of coordination that goes on in terms of who gets ready when, who needs to be fully ready by what time before the bride can get into her dress. So to answer your question, yes, she's fully ready before everything goes on.
That's a lot. That's a lot of logistical coordination. Yes. How crazy.
Yeah.
And one other important piece is, depending on the type of fabric that the dress has, steamers. You often need a last minute steam, maybe the veil, maybe the dress. Do I bring that? Do I want to have that on hand? How do you feel about that last minute prep, that last touch?
We have 2 steamers actually in each of our suites available for our clients to use. So that's just one less thing that they have to think about packing up and bringing here and packing up and bringing home that day. We try to make it as fully equipped in our suites as possible for whenever they get here.
So one of the things that I want to know, that I know other people want to know, is tell me about the actual logistics of the day. What is a real timeline in hours, minutes? What is the real flow of a day? Say the wedding starts at 5 p.m.
Yeah, so as it relates to Spain Ranch, because let's say we're doing a Saturday wedding and that's a 13-hour rental, we really base that rental time on the send-off because you want to have an hour at the end left over to clean and pack everything up and get all your vendors out. So let's say with a 5 o'clock ceremony, you're going to have a 10 o'clock send-off. So we would do a 10 a.m. rental to an 11 p.m. rental. So that would mean the wedding party can arrive as early as 10 o'clock. Sometimes they're rehearsing that morning, which then they would arrive. Sometimes they're rehearsing that morning, which would then mean they're arriving a little bit earlier than 10 o'clock to actually rehearse. Then 10 o'clock is usually when hair and makeup starts. Usually those vendors want to start right away because that's kind of the thing that takes the longest in the morning. On average, I see about 3 to 4 hours that people stake out for hair and makeup for the bride, bridesmaids, anyone else that needs to get ready that day. Typically 3 to 4 hours in is when you're seeing the bride getting into her dress. And then you're seeing those photos start, however many first looks they're doing with family, wedding party, bride and groom, maybe they're doing private vows beforehand. That is all customized based on what the couple wants to do. I always defer to a photographer for that because depending on how many events they want photographed before their ceremony, that may mean they need to be ready 2 hours before their ceremony, or it might mean 2.5, or it might just mean an hour before if they really don't want photos done beforehand. Then I like to make sure that the couple is tucked away 30 minutes before the ceremony. That guarantees that as soon as their guests are arriving, they're out of the way, unless they want to greet people, which is typically not common. They want to be out of the way for that reveal whenever they come down the aisle. So we get them tucked away. Guests begin arriving in that 30-minute before ceremony window. Ceremony begins, depending on how long that ceremony is. I see on average a ceremony is about 20 to 30 minutes. Of course, it could be longer or shorter, so that's something that we work with their officiant on. At the end of the ceremony, guests typically move on to a cocktail hour while the couple finishes up portraits. That's usually a great time to do family portraits, finish up any couple portraits if they didn't do a first look. So again, that's one of those things with the photographer. We work directly with them to say, realistically, with the amount of portraits they're needing after ceremony, how long do you need? We don't want them to have too much time because we don't want guests to wait forever for dinner. But we also don't want to underestimate the time and throw everything behind. Then the food got here 30 minutes ago and it's cold. So we work directly with the photographer or videographer, whoever their team is that day, to make sure that we have the right amount of time for those post-ceremony photos. Then guests come inside for the dinner. Everyone is seated. Typically the couple will come in for more of a grand introduction if they choose to. Oftentimes after they come in, they do their first dances. Maybe they have special dances such as mother-son, father-daughter, any variation of those special family dances they typically do at that point too. And then people sit down and have a meal. So there's several different ways that people serve. Some people might do more of a formal meal. That's like a plated dinner. So we might have an hour or a little over an hour for dinner if it's more of a dining experience. Some people like to go a little more casual and have food stations or have a buffet.
I love that.
So sometimes that can kind of lead to a more casual environment, and maybe the food is open before the couple even comes in, and they all walk around and grab food and see the couple and not have as much of a formal sit-down meal. Another thing sometimes couples do, which I love, is if they want to sneak off and have their own private meal together.
Oh, that's nice.
Oftentimes people forget that the couple are pulled in so many different directions that day, they might not have a chance to eat. Or if they sit down to eat, they've got all these people coming up to them, wanting to take photos, pulling them in other directions. So oftentimes we can even set up a private dinner right where we're sitting right here, where couples can come up, sit down, share a dinner for 10 or 15 minutes. Actually eat. Actually get to spend time with each other, because sometimes
think about the fact that they just got
married. A lot of times too, for people that just get very overwhelmed on the wedding day, this is always a really good way to kind of bring them back down, make them feel a little bit more relaxed before the fun part of the evening.
Party time.
So then somewhere towards the end of dinner, I throw in toast and cake cutting if they are doing toast. And then after the cake cutting, usually the couple is going to do a little mingling with their guest before dancing starts, and then they dance and they send off at the end of the night.
And sparklers or rice or whatever you throw now.
Whatever they choose to do.
Yeah. We'll have an example of that in the show notes below so that you can work through it at your own pace and see what fits for you. Here's a tricky one. What are some of the mistakes that people make? What are things that maybe they forget? What are unexpected things that come up?
Well, I think in all of my years of doing weddings, I tell people to expect the unexpected.
Yes.
One of which actually, as it relates to dresses, is they forget to bring anything that could help them in the event that there's a stain on their dress before, after ceremony. So I always recommend that they speak with their tailor or whoever's in charge of that to get some sort of stain remover and have a plan in place should that happen to them.
Imagine that, they're wearing white.
Yes.
Who would ever guess?
Who would ever guess? Another thing, just small things that just kind of get overlooked or people don't think about. One thing is pens for the guest book. I have a lot of people that come up to me and they're like, we don't have pens. And then you don't want to just pull out like some, shoddy old pen. So having pretty pens for that makes a big difference, and it's something that people forget. It's also something they can sign their marriage license with, which brings me to another thought. People, for some reason, forget to bring the marriage license, which is often the most important document that day, correct? So not only do people forget it, but I have seen people who maybe don't have a planner or coordinator to help them, they totally forget to sign it. And then they'll leave, and maybe they're heading on their honeymoon right after the next morning, and they've not signed it. So I actually was at a wedding where that happened, and they called because they were leaving on their honeymoon, but they were already at the hotel, I believe, and they had their best man and maid of honor forge their signatures because you have to send it back within a certain time frame.
Couple of days, that's all you get. So if you're going to Mexico, you might be out of luck.
Another thing that comes to mind is building in time during the timeline to bustle the dress. Oftentimes, this happened when I first started doing weddings. I didn't think to put it in the timeline because it's just something that usually naturally happens. But then what I would see was right before the grand entrance, we'd be getting ready and the bride would turn around and go, oh my gosh, I need my dress bustled. I'm about to go in and do my first dance. Then we have to stall and put everything off. So now I ask that ahead of time. Are you going to need your dress bustled? Who will be bustling it? If it's me, can you shoot a video so that way we don't have to spend 15 minutes trying to learn right then?
Yes.
And that solved that almost completely, but it is something that people forget pretty quickly.
That obviously near and dear to my heart. Yes. And we draw a picture and do a video as well. Because you're in there, you're in your last appointment with us. I'm sure I'll remember this. It's really easy. And the day comes and guess what? You had 50,000 things to remember before this moment, and now here we are, and you're just looking at a bunch of ribbons and you don't know what any of them are for. That's okay. We got you. We will get that covered. We will remember that.
Very important.
Yes.
Other small things that come to mind, people forget to bring cake serving utensils. So when they cut the cake,
plastic fork.
Yeah, sometimes the caterer has them. It's never something you should assume the caterer is going to have, but especially if you want a special set of those, it's just one of those small details that gets forgotten. So we'll make do. We'll do what we need to. Like you said, if we need to get a plastic fork, we can do that.
Saber, some of us may have.
And same with toasting flutes. If you want to do a special toast with some special toasting flutes, that would be an important thing to remember too. So those are the things that come to mind. I think the most important thing is to work with a planner or coordinator, and they'll make sure that you have all your T's crossed and I's dotted.
That's perfect. That's perfect. And most importantly, that we all get to have a good time.
Yes.
So bring your party dancing shoes.
Yes,
of course.
Absolutely.
When somebody is starting the search for the venue, where is the first place to start? It seems like a really big field. How do you even begin that search?
I think Instagram is probably the most important whenever you're searching for a venue. Do you see the styles you like there? Reviews are also really important. I think that hearing real life accounts from couples or people who have hosted events at that venue are going to be the most important part of that search. You want to make sure that people are happy with their experience and that your expectations are met within those reviews that you see.
Yes, that sounds really important. I want to know that other people have had good experiences there and experienced something similar to what I'm hoping for, it sounds like.
Yeah. I think it's important to come see it in person as soon as you know that that might possibly be where you want to have your wedding. We have some couples, maybe 10% of our couples book here before they're ever even engaged. If they know that they want to get married a certain time of year and they know that they're looking at rings and all of that, they may go ahead and book the venue because at certain venues, they book super far out. So if they have to have a specific time of year, if they have to have one specific date, it's never too early to go see the venue and book it. Now, one thing that's cool here is we actually have a video tour as well. So as I mentioned, because we do have some destinations destination clients, and we're seeing more and more of that to where people may not be able to make it down here, at least in a timely manner before they book. We offer that video tour so they can actually go through the venue. My voice is over it, letting them know kind of the things that I would usually talk about on an in-person tour, and we get really great feedback from that. So I think that's really important. You can always ask a venue if they have a video tour available. If you're not able to or don't want to come see it in person right away, you can watch that video tour.
That is awesome. That brings up one other big important point, which is, what is the timeline on booking? How far out do you actually have to book? And does that change during certain times of the year?
I really believe the 4 most popular months, at least in Oklahoma, are May, June, September, and October. Of course, that doesn't mean the other months aren't busy, but those seem to be the highest in demand. And in those high demand months, if you're looking towards a Saturday, honestly, we've had people book as far as 24 months out for a date. That doesn't mean all of them will be, but as a general rule, for a Saturday in our peak months, 12 to 18 months out is a really good range for when you want to book those.
Great.
Now, another thing that I find to be really cool these days is that not everyone has to get married on a Saturday. People are more open to getting married other days of the week. If they love the venue, they love the time of year, and either the date's not available or they can't afford a Saturday, they can pick a weekday, or they can pick a Friday or a Sunday, and most venues offer discounts for other days of the week. I personally got married on a Monday, and it didn't feel any different than a Saturday.
No, it's still your special day. It's still a big day.
Yeah.
So what is the most common weekday?
Monday or Thursday.
Okay.
And it's so funny because it used to be Thursday, no doubt. Like, hands down, Thursday was the most popular.
Yeah.
One day it just occurred to me that a Monday makes a lot of sense because it backs up to a weekend. So if you have traveling guests, they can travel in on a Saturday or Sunday and not miss work like they might have to if you have a Thursday midweek. Yeah. And then you have the wedding on a Monday. So when I tell people that, and then I tell people I got married on a Monday, they're like, oh my gosh. So that might be our 4th most popular day of the week that we book now, are Mondays.
Wow.
Yeah.
How surprising, but makes sense. Yeah, I get it. That's awesome. Let's talk about red flags. When we're looking for a venue, what are we not looking for? What should occur to us as, ooh, this is off, or I don't like this, or this may be a warning sign?
Number one, I think the first thing people are going to run into is communication. Is the venue quick in getting back with me? Are they thorough and thoughtful in their responses? Are they warm? If a venue is not getting back with you in a timely manner, if a week has gone by and you haven't heard from them, or they're not sending very thoughtful responses, they're not answering your questions, I would say that's a huge red flag.
Okay.
Now, another thing that comes to mind would be transparency. So if the venue seems secretive on what they charge, or you feel like there's going to be all sorts of service charges and upcharges and things that are going to surprise you later on, that would be a red flag for me as well. Yeah. And then the third thing, which I think is so important, especially in certain areas such as Oklahoma, where we have rainy seasons and we have storms and all of that, if you're touring a venue that has zero or not a great backup plan in terms of weather, that to me is also a red flag, because if it's rainy that day, what are you gonna do?
It's tornadoes.
Yeah.
You know, classic Oklahoma weather.
You wanna make sure that they have a good option in place and that you're okay with that option that's in place. You're not gonna be stuffed into some ugly room that may not fit your guest, or it's just not going to be a pretty ceremony. So I think that's really important.
Absolutely, yes. Those are great tips. Thank you so much for having us to your beautiful barn here. It's been such a joy.
Thank you for having me.
Maybe we'll take a little walk around and see if we can stir up a little trouble.
I'd love it.
What a stunning place. We have learned so much about the flow of the big day. And after all these months of hard work, from searching for the dress, buying the dress, altering the dress, to finally get to wear it, this is the big day we've been dreaming of. Congratulations, you made it! Thank you for joining us. Couple quick reminders. Don't forget, like, subscribe, leave us comments, ask us questions. We want to answer them all. Don't forget about the worksheet. That'll be linked below. And most importantly, we have one final episode in this series, and it's going to be a really special one. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but stay tuned, keep an eye out, hit the bell for a reminder, and we'll see you soon.